So I guess I now have a mountain in my backyard, but it currently has one large problem. It should be as detailed as this church terrain, but it currently has a lack of foliage. Although if I wanted to shrubify this entire landscape with my current farms, it may take a bit too long. So today it's time to make a building to house a bunch of different foliage farms that will all allow me to easily decorate the mountains in an achievable amount of time. Now that you've seen the material gathering, I'll let you know my plans with a bit more depth. So these two little cliffs are where the base of the build is going to go. The overall shape is going to be similar to an arch, but either end will be open to store the farms. And over here, where the ideal or initial viewing spot of the build is, I designed this build to act as a frame for it, going above the mountain and inviting you to boat or fly in. You can see from further back that it will make the midground stand out more against the mountains. Before that, I thought I'd explain how I designed it though. I usually find some concept art before I begin a build, but this time I went straight in with only a general style in mind. I'm not sure what you would call it, but my mind always thinks of it as a carnival look. I kept all the shapes very rounded, as I found that softer curves worked much better with the terrain. Hard edges felt out of place, so I decided to use more so cylinders, arches, and smooth transitions wherever I could. The diagonals made it interesting to build, as I had to make sure it looked good from each angle and that they seemed evenly placed apart. The birch goes really well with the weathered copper, as they both have a similar saturation. I removed the shadows by putting glass on the edges of certain areas. I then copied the segment I did to the left, as I'll be connecting both together with a main arch that I pointed out earlier. This is what will frame the mountain and go over the center river on the terrain. The two main blocks I used for the arches were trapdoors and walls to create a smooth shape. For the inside, I created an inner shape of spruce, which makes the inside very welcoming and looks finished. The last step was the detailing. First I spawn proofed it, and then moved to the bottom to texture these walls. The first thing I do is pick a few blocks which are similar in intensity to the main block, and then go with that. I'll then choose a block which is in between that block. Once the full blocks are in, I'll go with smaller blocks to create texture, as well as further blending the colours together. Glass is always very useful for this, because it allows for colours which you can't usually get. There are still a few more parts to detail and things to change, but it's time to get to building it in survival, and I'll explain it all then. The main building is complete just after I put in these drip leaf. and you also saw that the inside has been filled with most of the farms I'll be needing to foliage my build. I decided against decorating the farms themselves, as I didn't mind the look of them now, and they are all easy to access. For the most part, the more green foliage farms are on this side, while the other one has items such as hanging roots and lichen indicated by the pale moss over here, and the other side's floor being normal moss, along with the interior roof texturing. The farms are all connected with simple ladders, so I don't need to waste rockets, and both sides are also spawn proof on the inside. You may have noticed the birch logs around, and for these farms I placed them where I'll be putting the bone meal shulkers against, so I placed them in the right spots and know where. Moving past the farms or interior, you can now understand what I was mentioning at the beginning, with the build framing the mountain in the background. It forces your view to be limited to invite you to move closer and go through the arch, to eventually explore the rest of the terrain. The very stylized round look I found surprisingly fits really well with the existing terrain. But one thing I have yet to say is that up next is to build a tree in this spot to fill in the gap and make the build pop out so it feels less flat. I already have the materials, so it's time to build the trunk and then get on with the rest. I now have two large trees, although of very different styles. I decided to go with an aspen tree for this one, because I think the colour complements the terrain and stands out amongst it. I'm really happy how it fills in the small space between the new build and the rocks to the left, closing in on the main view through the arch. The tree is also very rounded and not completely realistic. In these two spots I plan to add some dense forest, which may include aspens but also other tree types. The leaves are a simple gradient going from pumpkin to gold blocks, and for putting the leaves on the tree, I first made a bunch of around 30 assets which contained branches that all held from 3 to 5 leaves. I then made the stump and larger main branches before pasting in those assets. I do have one more detail to add to the tree however, which will make it feel like it has a bit more movement. I just wanted to point out that for every candle you have to build scaffolding under it, as they can only be placed on full blocks, which takes quite some time, but I hope it's worth the effort. The candles are in, and by the way, I might not do this with every tree I do, although I probably will due to how it turned out. I made sure all the candles were going in one direction, this time it was to the left. This was to make them seem like some falling leaves amongst the wind. It's hard to get the effect from below, but from a distance of about here, I think it works pretty well. This tree was also more of a test for the technique to see if it was viable, so I'll also make sure to put more time into it because I believe it is for the next tree. What I haven't done however is a quick overview of the farms running, and I have a lot of bone meal stocked up from my bone meal farm that's been working while I've been building. I did also build a fern and grass farm, but for some reason they don't work because of something server side, so I guess I'm stuck with the grass farm below here, which also half works. I'll make sure to make a better one off camera, although I have one more thing to talk about. If this is your first video you probably won't care, but I'm not going to be making another video on this world anymore. The server this is on isn't made for making videos, so I've run into a few issues. However, this world was never intended to be the main thing I posted about, and instead, during this series, I've been practicing my editing and preparing and building the infrastructure for my next, still survival but more unique project. I won't stop building my base here, however. I'll still be posting updates and completing your suggestions I've gotten along the way, along with my own ideas linked in the description. No pressure though. So with that, I hope you stick with me, and thanks for staying.